Welcome to Best Buds Gardening. I'm Julie. Today, let's talk about hollyhocks, how to hand pollinate and save seeds. There's almost nothing more attractive in midsummer than the towering 6-foot tall columns of hollyhock blooms. And honeybees would agree with me. If you've got honeybees visiting your hollyhocks, you won't have to worry about their pollination. But sadly, we're at the point where there aren't enough honeybees to go around anymore because they're disappearing. This little girl visited every day for only 2 weeks before she was never seen again. So sometimes humans have to do the pollinating. Hollyhocks are amazing. Deep inside, where no human pays much attention. They produce both male and female parts, but not at the same time. The hollyhock evolved this way to prevent a bloom from pollinating itself in order to keep the seed genetics strong. Let's take a quick look at the blooming process. The first year after planting seeds, your hollyhocks more than likely will not bloom. They'll just grow plants. But make sure when you water them not to get the leaves wet. That will introduce a horrible disease that will carry over. We cannot control rain, but try to water them at the base. On year 2, your hollyhocks will start blooming, probably in June. The first exciting sign in May looks like this. This is a flower bloom cluster, and it seems like it takes forever until finally they'll look like this. And then as the stem grows, they'll look like this, spacing themselves apart. When the big day finally comes and you have your first bloom, it will have something inside that looks like a very fuzzy Q-tip. This is the male part of the flower where all the pollen is. All that pom-pom fuzzy stuff is pollen. The next day, that same bloom will start to send out the female part, which I think looks like a pink spider. Day 3, now the female part of the flower is fully present. We're going to take a paintbrush and collect some pollen from a flower that opened yesterday. And then we're going to come over to this flower and dab that pollen on the female parts. Pollination complete. You'll do this with each flower you want to pollinate. After a few days, that particular blossom will be done with its life cycle and will start to wilt. And finally, it'll drop off onto the ground. What it leaves behind, in the exact same place where it was, is a seed pod. Don't confuse this with a blossom ready to bloom. A blossom that hasn't opened yet and is ready to bloom looks like this, all smooth at the tip, coming to a very fine point. A fresh left behind seed pod looks like this, sort of like the swirl at the top of an ice cream cone or a wonton with a twisted top. There is no fine point at the tip. I was taking some photos of the differences between the two, and I noticed 2 sticks in the photograph. After I took the photo, I brought my actual face in for a closer look, wondering what those 2 green sticks were. Do you see the grasshopper and his antennae? I didn't. Until I went in for a closer look, I screamed and did the bug dance. I scared the grasshopper as badly as he scared me. Actually, Mr. Grasshopper is trying to eat my precious seed pods. My precious. So I carried Mr. Grasshopper over 3 blocks away to a nearby park. After about a month, your seed pods will start to dry out and be ready for harvesting. Your seed pod is not ready to harvest if these little green leaves are still curled up against the side. When those little green petals start to curl downward and you've got a good piece of brown at the base, it's ready. Snip your pod off with some strong scissors or pruners. Now you can just split your dried pod open. The seeds are in a ring like a halo. And just dump them out into a bowl. You want to get these before they're dry enough where they split open all by themselves. Because if they split open and they fall all over the ground, you're no longer in charge of where the seeds land and grow. Hollyhock seeds actually look a little bit like 2 seeds stuck together Don't separate that or you'll damage your seed. This is what they're supposed to look like, kind of like a little fan, but only two pieces to that fan. This is a hollyhock seed. If you want to save seeds for long-term storage, let them dry outside of the pod for at least another week or two. Happy seed saving! Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you won't miss a thing.